Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. Please let me know if you can hear me. You can either type in in the chat box, which is located in the lower right-hand corner, or also you might see at the top of your screen there is a little person with a hand raised. You can do things like raise your hand or say I agree or uh, speak louder, speed up, things like that. You can also raise your hand and things like that. So I just want to make sure everybody can hear me, and I'll get started here in just a moment. Thank you for joining me. Today we will talk about uh, basic formulas in Excel, and we'll spend only 15 to 20 minutes. We like to do these webinars and just concentrate on a few certain tasks and um, not spend too much time doing this. So I'll get started now. Right now you should see my PowerPoint screen is playing through. It says welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm going to close this down and open up a spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet's just a little practice spreadsheet for us. Can everyone see that? I guess, yeah, I can see it on my other computers. This spreadsheet is I'm just going to use it to show you a few examples. The first thing we want to start on is just basic, how do you type in a formula? On the left here in column A, if you can see my mouse, all I want to do is a simple calculation with addition. And anytime you start a formula, you start with the equal sign. So in column B, next to this 4 plus 5, I'll start with the equal sign, and that's really all I have to do is type in 4 and use the plus sign, 5. And from there I can hit enter, the enter key, or you can also click on this check mark up above. And that's my formula, 4 plus 5. So pretty easy. You type it just like you would write it, except in Excel, you have to put the equal sign first. So when you have the cell selected, at the top, you can see a formula bar. You can see what is in the cell, not the value, but the formula that you have typed. So plus sign, I have to use the shift, and then there's a key at the top next to the backspace key. Top of my keyboard has a plus sign and an equal sign. So I have to use shift plus to type that plus sign in, or it's easier if you have a keyboard with numbers. There's a plus sign on the keyboard there. All of those signs, the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are also on that number keyboard. You'll see a plus, a minus for the dash, an asterisk for multiplication, or I call that a star. And for division, you use, it's called a forward slash. So onward, I'm going to move onward. So just a simple calculation using subtraction. Let's say I want to take 15 minus 10. Again, I just start with the equal sign and type in 15 minus, or dash, whatever you want to call it, hyphen, 15 minus 10. I'll hit enter, and I've got my result. Again, when you click on that cell, there's a formula bar at the top, right under the ribbon. You can see the actual formula that you typed in. So again, just for multiplication, just a short example, I'll start with the equal sign, 5, and for multiplication you use the star or the asterisk, which is Shift 8 on the keyboard. 5 times 3. So that's simple enough for you. The division, 16 divided by the division, that keystroke, the key is on the bottom right of your keyboard where the question mark is, and we call that a forward slash. So equals 14, no, I was going to say 16. 16 forward slash, which means divide by 4. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. Now the next part gets a little confusing. We have an order of precedence. So mathematically, we go from left to right, but we change the order and do multiplication and division before addition and subtraction. So this 4 plus 5 times 3, let me just type that in first. So I'll start with an equal sign. I'll type in 4 plus 5 times 3. And sometimes I get mixed up. I wonder, is that going to be 9 times 3 or 5 times 3, 15 plus 4? And you have to start with that multiplication. So you get the 5 times 3, that's calculated first, then you add 4. But if you ever get confused, it's just easier to use parentheses. So this second example, I'll start with the equal, and let's say I want to make sure I want to add 4 plus 5 before I multiply it by 3. So I just put parentheses around it. And that's how you can control the order. So I get a much different answer. So I use parentheses a lot even if I'm not sure about it, because that makes me sure I know what will come first in these calculations. Any questions so far? I forgot to introduce myself. This is Carlene Coover. Welcome, everyone. I'm a technical trainer in the IT department, and we're starting this a little bit of different training here, trying to give you some short webinars to help you out with certain tasks. So look for more in the future. I know in 2 weeks we have a PowerPoint webinar. So let me move on here. So just the basic formulas, it looks like the same as writing it on paper, but you start with the equal sign and you can type in your formula. Now moving on to some more examples. I'll move to my second worksheet. After you learn your basic formulas, and you can write any kind of formula you need, I call this jumping to the next level, because you start to write formulas, and instead of actually typing in the numbers, you type in a cell reference. So if I want to know how much Peter earned this week, I won't just type in equal 40 times 20. I want to use a cell reference, and I can type that in just like the basic formula without cell references. I start with equal, and the hours he worked, 40 hours, they're in cell B1. I can actually type B1 and then plus, oh sorry, B2, typed that wrong, B2 plus C2, and I'll hit equal, and that's how much Peter made. So again, you can see when you select this cell, you can see the actual formula. There's a formula bar right above our spreadsheet here, right below the ribbon. It says equal B2 plus C2. Let's do it again, just one more example. I'll start with an equal sign. I want Rosa's hours, which are in B3, and I can type B3, or I can also just select it with my mouse. I like to use that method. You can either type it in or select the cell with your mouse. So I'll say equal B3 times, and I'll select C3 and hit enter. So this allows you to, using cell references allows you to create very detailed spreadsheets that you can use over and over again, and all you need to do is change the data. So I could use this pay calculation spreadsheet every week. I just fill in the different hours, and I might change the hourly pay. Also, if I figure out, Rosa actually worked 40 hours, I can make my change from 38 hours to 40 and hit enter, and the calculation will change for me. So, whoops, I did something wrong here. I'm sorry. It's B2 times C2. Kind of cheated her on her salary. So anyway, so this is how you create some formulas using cell reference. And a really cool thing about this, I've got 10 people here I want to look at. I want to calculate their pay. I don't have to make 10 formulas. I can make the first one and see the little dot. I have selected this cell called D2. There's a little dot in the lower right hand corner. When you put your cursor on it, your cursor changes to, it's like a crosshair. If you click on that and drag down, your formula is copied all the way down as far as you drag it. So that is a wonderful shortcut. That's called fill, F-I-L-L. And you can use fill, you can drag down, you can drag to the right, but it's just going to copy the formula like this B2 times C2 and use the relative reference. So it copies to B3 times C3, B4 times C4, and so on. So that's my favorite shortcut, is fill. It's called fill. And you just have to practice a little bit, get your cursor right on that corner, and your cursor will change to this cross. Then you drag down. What happens sometimes if you put your cursor on the cell border and you move it, you can actually move the cell, and you don't want to do that. You want to get it in that corner. So another favorite button of mine is undo. There's right at the top of my screen next to the save button. This is called the quick access toolbar. Here's undo. If I drag something to the wrong place, I hit undo. Now, the next thing I'd like to show you is sometimes when you drag and you use fill and you drag this down, your formula doesn't always work. And that is the case when you have an absolute reference. Let me erase this. So right here, I've got Peter's hours. Let's see, his hours are in B2. His hourly pay is in C2. And the formula is in D2. It's multiply B2 times C2. So 40 hours times $20 per hour. Now, I'd like to calculate a bonus. For this bonus, I'm going to use 10%. And so again, for my calculations, for a formula, I start out with an equal sign. Then I want the total pay, which is in D2, and I want to multiply it by the 10%. So I'll just click on H1 because that has my 10% located. I hit enter. $80 is the bonus. So that makes sense, $80 out of 800. Now, if I want to copy this formula down, I can use this fill, put my cursor in the bottom right corner, and drag it down. But there's a problem. It doesn't know, the problem is I've taken D2 and multiplied by H1 for Peter. For Rosa, I've got D3, but it's not looking at H1 at the 10%, it's looking below that because it uses we're using a relative reference. So this, where I have this percentage in H1, I call that a absolute reference. So I want to recreate this formula. Instead of D2 times H1, I want to make sure H1 is an absolute reference to H1, meaning when I copy the formula, H1 doesn't change. It always says H1. So one way you can do this, you can type in a $ in front of the H and in front of the 1. You can also just highlight it. I'm in the formula bar here. Click inside H1 and the key F4 on your keyboard. That'll change it to an absolute value. So now looks a little different, looks kind of funny with these $signs, but that's what an absolute value looks like. Now when I copy this, I use fill, drag it down, I get the correct calculation because it is looking every calculation, it's taking the total to the left and multiplying by the bonus. Now here's the really cool stuff. I can change my bonus. Let's say this week I'm not going to be so generous. I will give them a 5% bonus and I can recalculate. So that's a really nice feature. You use cell references and you can do what if analysis and see different calculations for different amounts. Now, the next example I'd like to give you is called AutoSum. And instead, I would like to get the total of all of these employees' paychecks here. I'll put it in under the total, this will be in D12. There's a really quick way to do that. I could say equal D2 plus D3 plus D4. I don't want to do that. What I'll show you here, if you can see on the right of my screen, there's something called AutoSum in the ribbon. All I have to do is put my cursor in the cell, click AutoSum. Excel's pretty smart. It says, oh, you want to sum up all these numbers above here. And that is correct. So again, I can hit enter on my keyboard. Or I can hit this check up here by the formula bar. And it has given me the total. And it also, without me asking, totaled up the bonus column. So that is a really easy AutoSum that's easy to use. And if you look at AutoSum in this formula bar, it says equals sum, and it has a range of cells that it adds together. So sum is called a function. Now, another little trick I like to show you, um, if you want to count up how many, say I want to count how many people or how many entries are here. If I highlight all these names, look down in your status bar. That's the green bar at the bottom of my spreadsheet. It'll give me count. Count equals 10. If I count up the hours worked, or if I select the hours worked for these 10 people, it gives me another count of 10. It means I've selected 10 different cells, but it also gives me an average. That's 37.8 for each employee, and a sum, all the hours, total of all these hours in this column B is 378. So that is a very handy thing that shows up on the status bar when you select one or multiple range of cells. It'll give you a count and sum and average. So I hope you've learned a lot from this webinar, and please, you can ask, I'll stay on the line. You can ask me questions. Just use your chat box. And please join us in 2 weeks for a webinar on PowerPoint. Thanks a lot for joining me. Please type in any questions you might have.